watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Manhattan, New York, Hawthorne Manor. The timer on my watch reads 0 to 29 when I hear the sharp click of designer heels on Italian marble. Darn. 29 seconds to find somewhere to hide before Eleanor Hawthorne discovers that her digital security consultant is actually a corporate intelligence specialist trying to steal the blueprints for her family's revolutionary gemstone verification technology. Main hallway too obvious. Guest powder room no lock. The sitting room filled with surveillance cameras I installed myself as part of my cover. That leaves only one option. The walnut door at the end of the corridor, the one Eleanor specifically warned me to absolutely never, under any circumstances, enter. Naturally, it's exactly where I go. The door closes behind me with a soft click, and I turn to discover I'm not in just any room. This is the most intimate private library I've ever seen. Walls lined with dark leather volumes, an antique desk covered in family photographs, and a fascinating choice of hiding spot. I nearly jump out of my skin. In the center of the room, illuminated only by moonlight streaming through tall windows, sits the most frustratingly attractive man I've ever had the misfortune to encounter. Dark auburn hair slightly mussed, piercing blue eyes that seem to see straight through my lies, and a lopsided smile that screams complications. "You must be the famous digital security consultant," he says, his voice carrying a distinct East Coast accent with cultured undertones. Though I have to wonder what kind of security professional hides in the family patriarch's private sanctuary. My brain shifts into survival mode. "And you would be someone who probably shouldn't be here either." He rises from the leather wingback chair where he'd been sitting, and I notice he has a leather portfolio open in his lap. The question is, what's a cybersecurity expert doing fleeing through hallways like a cat burglar? What anyone would do when they hear Eleanor Hawthorne approaching in full executive mode, I reply, trying to sound casual while my eyes scan for possible escape routes. "And you reading family documents at midnight leisure activity or occupation?" He chuckles, a low, genuinely entertained sound. Fair point. Though technically it's past 2 a.m. Eleanor's footsteps stop right outside the door. My pulse spikes. "Alexandra, darling, are you out there?" Her voice is sweet as artificial sweetener. "I need to review the third-floor security protocols with you." I look at the stranger in alarm. He puts a finger to his lips and points to a mahogany cabinet. I have no choice. Squeezing inside, surrounded by the scent of cedar and something mysteriously appealing. "Damien, are you in grandfather's study again?" Eleanor taps on the door. You know he treasured his privacy in there. Damien, as in Damien Hawthorne, the family's prodigal son who supposedly lives overseas. "Just reviewing some family documents." "Aunt Eleanor," he responds, his voice becoming more measured. "I'll secure everything when I finish. Your grandfather wouldn't approve of you examining his private papers." "I understand." Just a few more minutes. Silence, then Eleanor's footsteps retreating down the marble corridor. I emerge from the cabinet, trying to maintain dignity but probably looking exactly like what I am, a 28-year-old woman who just hid in furniture like a schoolchild. "Damien," I repeat thoughtfully. "Intriguing. And what exactly is a Hawthorne doing infiltrating private studies at 2:00 the morning? Same thing as a digital security consultant, I suspect." He closes the portfolio and places it back on the mahogany desk. Trying to determine if this family is orchestrating something I should be concerned about, that makes me pause. "You're not part of the inner circle." "Technically I am, but I've been living abroad for 12 years. Returned because my grandfather, the owner of this study, passed away and left some complications in his estate." "What kind of complications?" "The kind involving rare gems that vanished from international vaults and surfaced in very particular private collections." His eyes sharpen. And you, Alexandra, what type of digital security do you specialize in? Blast. He knows my real name, not the alias I use with the Hawthorns. This is either very problematic or potentially advantageous. The type that compensates well, I say cautiously, though I'm beginning to suspect I might be out of my depth with this family. Trust me, you are. He steps closer, and I catch a hint of expensive cologne mixed with something that reminds me of old books and midnight conversations. The Hawthorns don't hire consultants. They acquire them, and they don't release easily. Speaking from personal experience, unfortunately. His smile turns wry. I attempted to distance myself once. They made it crystal clear that family allegiance isn't negotiable. The antique clock in the corner strikes twice, its resonant tone making us both freeze. I should leave, I whisper. If Eleanor discovers us together, she'll assume we're romantically involved and weaponize it against both of us. Damien finishes. Yes, I know her tactical approach. Hess absolutely right, but as I move toward the door, he gently catches my elbow. Alexandra. His voice is softer now, almost protective. Whatever they're compensating you, whatever they've promised, be extremely cautious. The Hawthorns have a pattern of making people vanish when they're no longer valuable. I look down at his hand on my arm, then up at those blue eyes that seem far too perceptive. Why are you warning me? Because, he says, releasing me, I have a strong suspicion you're not really here for digital security consulting. And if I'm correct, you're going to need every advantage you can get. I slip out of the room without another word, but his warning resonates in my mind as I navigate back to the guest wing. Damien Hawthorne might be the family outcast, but he's also clearly the most dangerous person in this mansion and the most captivating. Back in my room, I stare at the ceiling and try to process how a straightforward corporate intelligence assignment just became infinitely more complex. Because there's one thing I didn't tell Damien. I know exactly why he's really here. He's pursuing the same objective I am. Hawthorne Manor. The next morning, I wake up to the sound of someone trying very hard to be quiet outside my door. Through the crack beneath it, I can see expensive Italian leather shoes pacing back and forth. Damien's shoes, unless Eleanor has suddenly developed a fondness for men's footwear. My bedside clock reads 6:47 a.m. Most normal people would still be asleep, but apparently neither Damien nor I qualify as normal people. I slip into my robe, a practical navy silk that screams professional consultant rather than international spy, and crack open the door. Good morning, Damien. Lovely day for lurking in hallways. He startles, nearly dropping the coffee cup in his hand. Alexandra. I was just pacing outside my door like a restless ghost. Yes, I noticed. I step aside. You might as well come in before someone sees you and gets the wrong idea. Or the right idea, he mutters, but follows me inside. My guest suite is elegant in that understated way wealthy families prefer. Cream walls, antique furniture that probably costs more than most people's cars, and windows overlooking the estates, perfectly manicured gardens. Damien looks oddly out of place against all that refined luxury, like a wild animal trying to remember how to be domesticated. Couldn't sleep? I ask, settling into one of the silk armchairs by the window. Not particularly. He hands me the extra coffee cup he's carrying. I kept thinking about what you said last night. I said a lot of things last night. You'll have to be more specific. About being out of your depth. His blue eyes are serious in the morning light. I've been doing some research on you, Alexandra Bennett. My stomach drops, but I keep my expression neutral. Find anything interesting? That depends on your definition of interesting. He settles into the chair across from me. Graduated summa cum laude from MIT with a degree in computer science. Worked for 3 different tech companies in 5 years. Excellent references, impeccable track record, and absolutely no digital footprint before 2019. I sip my coffee, buying time. It's perfect, rich, complex, with just a hint of cinnamon. Of course, Damien Hawthorne would know how to make perfect coffee. Maybe I value my privacy. Maybe. Or maybe Alexandra Bennett didn't exist before 2019. The accusation hangs in the air between us like smoke. I could deny it, could fabricate some story about changing my name or wiping my social media. But something in Damien's expression tells me he'd see right through any lie I tried to spin. What gave me away? I ask instead. The way you moved last night. I've spent enough time around actual tech consultants to know they don't have that kind of situational awareness. You cleared that room like someone trained in counter-surveillance. He leans forward slightly. Plus, I ran your credentials through some unofficial channels. Very impressive work, by the way. Whoever created your identity is a master craftsperson. Thank you, I think so. The question becomes, who are you really? And what do you want with my family? I study his face, looking for signs of anger or betrayal, but find only curiosity. It's refreshing, actually. Most people who discover I've been lying to them tend to get rather upset about it. I'm someone who gets paid very well to acquire information that other people would prefer to keep private, I say carefully. As for what I want with your family, let's just say someone is very interested in the technology your grandfather was developing before he died. The gemstone verification system, among other things. I set down my coffee cup. Your turn. What's a Hawthorne heir doing sneaking around his own family's estate like a common thief? Damien is quiet for a long moment, staring out at the gardens where morning mist is just beginning to lift. My grandfather left me something in his will. Something the rest of the family doesn't know about yet. He reaches into his jacket pocket and pulls out an ornate silver key. This was in a safety deposit box in Switzerland, along with a letter telling me to use it to open a specific room in this house. Let me guess, not the room we were in last night. No, that was just his regular study. This key opens something else entirely. He turns it over in his palm. The letter said it'd find answers about what really happened to my parents. That stops me cold. I thought your parents died in a car accident when you were 15. That's what the family told everyone. But my grandfather's letter suggests otherwise. Damien's jaw tightens. Apparently my parents discovered something about the family business. Something dangerous enough that they had to be removed. The implications hit me like a physical blow. Damien, are you saying your family killed your parents? I'm saying I intend to find out. He pockets the key. Which brings us to an interesting crossroads, doesn't it? We both want something from this family. We could work against each other. Or we could work together. I finish the thought, my mind already racing through possibilities. Pool our resources, share information. Exactly. I know this house and its secrets. You know how to navigate around security systems without being detected. What makes you think it'd trust you? Damien stands and moves to the window, his silhouette backlit by the strengthening sunrise. Because I warned you last night when I could have turned you in to Eleanor. Because I brought you coffee this morning instead of calling security. And because he turns back to face me, I think we're both looking for the truth about this family. Even if we're approaching it from different angles. There's something in his voice, a vulnerability that makes my chest tighten unexpectedly. This isn't just about corporate espionage anymore. This is personal for him. All right, I say, surprising myself. Temporary partnership. But I have conditions. Name them. First, complete honesty between us. No more games, no more testing each other. If we're doing this, we do it as equals. Agreed. Second, whatever we find in that room your grandfather wanted you to open, we share all of it. Agreed. And third, I stand and move closer to him, close enough to see the flecks of green in his blue eyes if this goes sideways. If your family discovers what we're really up to, we watch each other's backs. No one gets left behind. He extends his hand. Deal. I shake it. and the contact sends an unexpected jolt of electricity up my arm. Damien feels it too. I can tell by the way his eyes widen slightly, the way his grip lingers just a moment too long. "So," I say, stepping back before I do something stupid like kiss a man I've known for less than 12 hours, "when do we go treasure hunting?" "Tonight. Eleanor is hosting one of her charity galas downstairs. The entire family will be occupied with playing gracious hosts." Damien's smile is sharp and dangerous. Perfect cover for a little exploration. Perfect. I return his smile. "Just one more question. Do you have any idea what we might find behind that door?" Not a clue. He heads for the door, then pauses with his hand on the knob. But something tells me it's going to change everything. After he leaves, I sit back down with my coffee and stare out at the Hawthorne estate grounds. Somewhere out there, gardeners are tending flowers that cost more than most people's monthly salary. Inside, a family is preparing for another day of projecting wealth and respectability while hiding dark secrets. And tonight, I'm going to help their prodigal son uncover truths that might destroy them all. I should be nervous. This is way beyond the scope of my original assignment, but instead, I find myself excited in a way I haven't felt in years. Maybe it's the challenge. Maybe it's the mystery. Or maybe it's the way Damien Hawthorne looks at me like I'm someone worth trusting with his deepest secrets. Either way, tonight can't come fast enough. Hawthorne Manor. Evening of the charity gala. The ballroom downstairs is a symphony of crystal and silk filled with Manhattan's elite, pretending to care about underprivileged children while sipping champagne that costs more than most people's rent. I can hear the string quartet from 3 floors up, their elegant melodies providing perfect cover for what Damien and I are about to do. I've traded my conservative consultant attire for something more suitable for breaking and entering: black leggings, a fitted dark sweater, and soft-soled shoes that won't make a sound on marble floors. Very cat burglar chic. A soft knock on my door makes me check my watch. 9:47 p.m., right on schedule. "It's showtime," Damien says when I open the door. Has changed 2 dark jeans and a black pullover that does absolutely nothing to diminish his aristocratic bearing. Some people just can't help looking like they belong in a boardroom, even when they're dressed for espionage. "Eleanor?" I ask, as we slip into the hallway. Holding court in the ballroom, telling the mayor's wife about her latest philanthropic endeavors. "Shall be occupied for hours." Damien produces the ornate silver key from his pocket. "Ready to see what grandfather was hiding?" We move through the estate like shadows, avoiding the main corridors where catering staff might still be bustling about. Damien knows every secret passage, every servant stairway, every blind spot in the house's layout. Growing up here clearly had its advantages. "Here," he whispers, stopping in front of a door I've never noticed before. It's tucked into an alcove near the estate's original wing, almost invisible unless you know where to look. Unlike the ornate walnut and mahogany doors throughout the rest of the house, this one is plain oak, designed to blend into the paneling. Damien slides the silver key into the lock. It turns with a soft click that seems unnaturally loud in the quiet hallway. The door opens to reveal a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. "Well," I murmur, "that's not ominous at all." Damien produces a small flashlight from his pocket and starts down the stairs. "After you, partner." The staircase descends much farther than I expected, taking us well below the main floor of the house. The air grows cooler as we go deeper, carrying the faint scent of old stone and something else I can't quite identify. At the bottom, we find ourselves in a circular chamber carved directly from bedrock. The flashlight beam reveals stone walls covered in built-in filing cabinets, each drawer labeled with dates going back decades. In the center of the room sits an antique desk with a modern computer setup that looks completely out of place in the medieval-style chamber. Holy smoke, I breathe. "Damien, this is like something out of a spy novel." My grandfather always did have a flair for the dramatic. Damien moves to the nearest filing cabinet and pulls open a drawer labeled 1995-2000. Inside are hundreds of manila folders, each meticulously labeled and organized. But why go to all this trouble to hide family records? I'm already examining the computer setup. It's state-of-the-art, probably worth more than my car. Because these aren't just family records. The monitor flickers to life when I touch the keyboard, displaying a password prompt. This is a complete intelligence operation. Damien looks up from the files he's browsing. What do you mean? Look around, Damien. Hidden chamber. Filing systems organized by date. Computer setup designed for data analysis and encryption. Your grandfather wasn't just a wealthy businessman. I gesture at the elaborate setup. He was running some kind of private intelligence network. Damien moves to join me at the computer, bringing one of the files with him. That would explain some things. He always seemed to know more about our business competitors than he should have. We assumed he just had good sources. What's in the file? Damien opens the manila folder, and photographs spill out across the desk. Black and white surveillance photos of people I don't recognize meeting in various locations around the city. These look like they were taken in the late 1992. He picks up one of the photos, studying it closely. Wait, Alexandra. This man here, I think this is my father. I lean closer to look. The photograph shows a tall man with Damien's distinctive jawline and dark hair, shaking hands with someone whose face is partially obscured by shadows. Are you sure? Pretty sure. I have his eyes, according to everyone who knew him. Damien's voice is tight with controlled emotion. But what was he doing meeting with whoever this is? I turn back to the computer. Maybe we can find out. Any ideas about the password? Damien considers for a moment, then types something into the keyboard. The screen flashes red. Access denied. What did you try? Hawthorne. Too obvious, I suppose. He tries again. Eleanor. Also too obvious. I study the setup more carefully. Next to the keyboard is a small crystal paperweight in the shape of a cut gemstone. Try clarity. Damien raises an eyebrow. Random guess? Not random. Your family's business is gemstone verification, right? In the gem trade, clarity is one of the most important factors in determining value. Seems like something a man who built his fortune on precious stones might use as a password. Damien types it in. The screen flashes green, and suddenly we're looking at a desktop filled with encrypted files and folders. Brilliant, Damien says, and his admiring tone makes something warm flutter in my chest. How did you know? Lucky guess. Plus, I did my homework on your family's business before taking this job. I click on a folder labeled Project Genesis. The question is, what exactly was your grandfather's project about? The folder opens to reveal dozens of documents, most of them heavily encrypted, but there are a few readable files, including what appears to be a detailed dossier on someone named Marcus Chen. Damien, I say slowly, scanning the document. I think your grandfather was investigating corporate espionage within your own family's company. What do you mean? I point to the screen. According to this, Marcus Chen was suspected of selling Hawthorne family trade secrets to competitors. Your grandfather was building a case against him. I scroll down through the document. But look at the dates. This investigation was happening right around the time your parents died. Damien goes very still beside me. You think there's a connection? I think we need to keep reading. I click on another file. This one labeled Insurance Policy. What we find makes my blood run cold. It's a detailed plan for exposing what your grandfather called the family conspiracy. Names, dates, evidence of financial irregularities, and proof that several Hawthorne family members were involved in selling company secrets. At the top of the list of suspected conspirators, Eleanor Hawthorne. Damien, I whisper, your aunt wasn't just aware of the corporate espionage. According to this, she was leading it. Damien's face has gone completely pale in the computer's glow. That's impossible. Eleanor's devoted her entire life to this family. Devoted to controlling it, maybe. I keep scrolling through the documents. Look at this. Your grandfather suspected that Eleanor discovered your parents were getting close to exposing the conspiracy. The car accident that killed them. He didn't think it was an accident at all. Damien sinks into the chair beside me, staring at the screen like it contains his worst nightmare, which I suppose it does. He thought Eleanor killed my parents. According to this, he was building a case to prove it. I click on another folder, this one labeled Final Evidence. Inside is a single video file dated just 2 weeks before Damien's grandfather died. Damien, I think we need to watch this. He nods silently, and I double-click the video file. Damien's grandfather appears on screen, looking frail but determined. Behind him, I can see this same chamber where we're sitting now. If you're watching this, Damien, then I'm gone and you found my sanctuary, the old man says. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you the truth while I was alive. I was trying to protect you, but I realize now that leaving you in the dark was the real cruelty. Damien's breathing has gone shallow beside me. Your parents discovered that Eleanor and her associates were stealing from the family company and selling our proprietary technology to competitors. When they confronted her, she arranged for their deaths to look like an accident. I spent 15 years gathering proof, but I was never brave enough to act on it while you were still vulnerable. The old man leans closer to the camera. The evidence is all here, Damien. Everything you need to bring Eleanor to justice and reclaim what she stole from our family. But be careful. She's more dangerous than you know, and she has resources I'm still discovering. The video ends, leaving us in the blue glow of the computer screen and absolute silence. After a long moment, Damien speaks, his voice rough with emotion. 15 years. I've been polite to my parents' killer for 15 years. I reach out and cover his hand with mine. Damien, I'm so sorry. All this time I thought I was the black sheep who abandoned the family. But I was just the inconvenient survivor she couldn't easily eliminate. He turns his hand over beneath mine, interlacing our fingers. What do I do now, Alexandra? How do I face her knowing what I know? Carefully, I say. Your grandfather was right about one thing. Eleanor is dangerous. If she killed your parents to protect her secrets, she won't hesitate to eliminate anyone else who threatens her, including you. Damien's grip on my hand tightens. God, Alexandra, I've dragged you into the middle of a family conspiracy. You should leave tonight before she realizes you're a threat. I'm not going anywhere. The words come out more fiercely than I intended. We're partners, remember? No one gets left behind. Damien stares at me for a long moment, and something shifts in his expression. Before I can react, he's cupping my face in his free hand, his thumb tracing along my cheekbone. You could have walked away the moment you realized how complicated this was getting, he says softly. Why didn't you? I could tell him it's professional pride or that I never leave a job unfinished. I could make up some story about justice and doing the right thing, but looking into his eyes, surrounded by the evidence of his family's betrayal, I find myself telling the truth. Because somewhere between last night and this morning, this stopped being just about the job. I lean into his touch. It became about you. He kisses me then, soft and careful, like he's afraid I might disappear if he moves too quickly. When we break apart, his forehead rests against mine. This is probably a terrible idea, he murmurs. Probably. I agree. But I've always been fond of terrible ideas. A sound from upstairs footsteps in the corridor above us makes us both freeze. The gala's ending, Damien whispers. We need to get out of here. We quickly copy the most important files to a portable drive I pull from my pocket. then shut down the computer and restore everything to exactly how we found it. As we climb back up the narrow staircase, I can hear voices echoing through the estate's halls, guests saying their goodbyes, staff beginning the cleanup process. At the top of the stairs, Damien locks the hidden door behind us and pockets the key. Alexandra. About what we found down there. We need time to process it all. I agree. And we need a plan for how to handle Eleanor. Right. But he doesn't move away from me. Instead, he reaches up and tucks a strand of hair behind my ear. Thank you for everything. I couldn't have done this alone. You don't have to do any of it alone, I tell him. We'll figure this out together. As we slip back through the darkened corridors toward our respective rooms, I can't help but think that everything has changed tonight, not just because of what we discovered about Eleanor and Damien's parents, but because of what's growing between us. I came to the Hawthorne estate to steal corporate secrets and earn a substantial paycheck. Instead, I found myself in the middle of a murder conspiracy and falling for the one person who could complicate everything. Back in my room, I stare at the portable drive containing evidence that could destroy Eleanor Hawthorne and finally give Damien the justice his parents deserve. But using it will also expose my own identity and probably end whatever this is growing between us. Some choices, I'm learning, don't have easy answers. Hawthorne Manor, 3 days after the discovery. The morning sun streams through my bedroom windows, but I've been awake since 4 a.m., staring at the portable drive on my nightstand like it's a loaded weapon. In many ways, it is. The evidence we copied from Damien's grandfather's hidden chamber could destroy Eleanor Hawthorne, but it could also destroy everything Damien and I are building together. 3 days have passed since our discovery, and the weight of what we know is becoming unbearable. Damien and I have maintained the pretense of our original covers. He's still the prodigal nephew visiting family. I'm still the cybersecurity consultant reviewing the estate's digital infrastructure. But the tension between us is electric, crackling with unspoken plans and the memory of that kiss in the underground chamber. A soft knock interrupts my brooding. Come in, I call, already knowing it's Damien by the distinctive pattern of his knock. 2 quick taps. Pause. 3 more. He slips inside, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing the kind of expensive casual clothes that probably cost more than my monthly rent. But there are dark circles under his eyes that match mine, and his usually perfect hair is mussed, like he's been running his hands through it. Rough night? I ask, accepting the coffee gratefully. You could say that. Damien settles into the armchair across from my bed, but his posture is tense, alert. Eleanor cornered me after breakfast. She wants to discuss my future plans with the family company. That makes my stomach clench. What kind of discussion? The kind where she tries to determine how much of a threat I am. Damien's jaw tightens. She's been watching me, Alexandra. Really watching. Yesterday I caught one of the groundskeepers taking photos of my car's license plate. This morning I noticed someone had been through my room while I was downstairs. Have you compromised our investigation? I don't think so, but she's definitely suspicious. Damien leans forward, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. There's something else. I did some research into that Marcus Chen name we found in the files. He died 6 months after my parents' single car accident. Just like them, the implications hit me like ice water. She's been eliminating threats for 20 years. It gets worse. I found obituaries for 3 other people mentioned in those files. All died within 2 years of being identified as security risks, all in accidents. Damien's hands clench around his coffee cup. Alexandra, we're not just dealing with corporate espionage anymore. We're dealing with a serial killer who's been operating under the cover of family respectability. I set down my coffee and moved to the window, ostensibly to check the gardens, but really to process this information. The perfectly manicured grounds stretch out below, peaceful and serene. It's hard to believe such beauty masks, such horror. We need to be smarter about this, I say finally. No more secret meetings in my room. No more late-night conversations in hallways. If Eleanor is watching us, we give her exactly what she expects to see. I turn back to face him, and the idea forming in my mind is either brilliant or completely insane. A romance. A harmless fling between the visiting nephew and the pretty consultant. Something that explains why we've been spending time together but poses no real threat to her operation. Damien's eyebrows rise. You want us to pretend to be having an affair? I want us to give Eleanor exactly the kind of distraction she'd expect from you. According to family gossip, Damien Hawthorne has a reputation for charming women and breaking hearts. Let her think that's all this is. And what about the real investigation? We continue it, but more carefully. Public displays of affection to explain our private conversations. Romantic walks through the gardens that happen to take us past certain windows. Late-night visits that anyone observing would assume are recreational. Damien is quiet for a long moment, studying my face. That's actually a brilliant cover story. But there's one problem. What? It won't be entirely pretending, will it? His voice is soft, but his eyes are intense. Not for me, anyway. My heart does something complicated in my chest. We've been dancing around this attraction for days, using the investigation as an excuse to spend time together, telling ourselves it's all professional. But the truth is, somewhere between uncovering family secrets and sharing dangerous truths, I've started falling for Damien Hawthorne in a way that has nothing to do with the job. No, I admit, it won't be entirely pretending. He sets down his coffee cup and stands, moving toward me with a kind of purposeful stride that makes my pulse quicken. Then, we should probably practice our cover story. Damien, I start to protest, but he's already reaching for me, his hand settling gently on my waist. For the investigation, he says, but his smile is pure mischief. We need to be convincing. When he kisses me this time, it's different from that soft, careful kiss in the underground chamber. This kiss is deeper, more confident, filled with 3 days of building tension and the dangerous thrill of playing with fire. My hands find their way to his shoulders, then into his hair, and for a moment, I forget entirely about corporate espionage and family conspiracies. A sharp knock on the door makes us spring apart like guilty teenagers. Miss Bennet, Eleanor's voice is honey-sweet through the door. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. Damien and I exchange a quick glance. He nods almost imperceptibly. This is it, our first test. Just a moment, I call out deliberately, making my voice sound slightly breathless. Damien reaches over and musses my hair slightly, then unbuttons the top button of his shirt. I have to admit, the man has good instincts for deception. I open the door to find Eleanor standing in the hallway, impeccably dressed as always, but with a predatory gleam in her eyes that makes my skin crawl. Eleanor, I say, trying to project the perfect combination of embarrassment and defiance. This is unexpected. I'm sure it is. Eleanor's gaze flicks past me to where Damien is attempting to look casually disheveled. Damien, dear, I was looking for you. We have that appointment with the family attorney this morning. Right. Damien moves to the door, but not before placing a possessive hand on the small of my back. He'll just grab my jacket from my room and meet you downstairs. Perfect. Eleanor's smile is all teeth. Miss Bennet, I hope you'll join us for lunch later. I'm sure Damien would appreciate your company. After they leave, I sink onto my bed and try to process what just happened. The cover story worked. I could see Eleanor's relief when she realized we were having an affair. To her, Damien Hawthorne chasing after the hired help is just another example of his irresponsible behavior, not a threat to her carefully constructed empire. But the kiss that was definitely not part of any cover story. That was real and dangerous, and completely complicated everything I thought I knew about keeping my professional and personal lives separate. An hour later, I'm reviewing security footage in the estate's monitoring room when my phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. Library, 3rd floor. Come alone. D. I find Damien in the estate's impressive library, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with first-edition books worth more than most people's houses. He's standing by one of the tall windows looking out at the gardens, and his posture tells me immediately that something's wrong. How did the meeting with the attorney go? I ask, settling into one of the leather reading chairs. Enlightening. Damien turns from the window, and his expression is grim. Eleanor has been very busy since my grandfather died. Apparently there have been several changes to the family trust, all of them consolidating power in her hands. What kind of changes? The kind that effectively make me a minority stakeholder in my own family's company. Damien moves to the chair across from me but doesn't sit. Instead, he starts pacing like a caged animal. She's been systematically removing anyone who might challenge her authority. The attorney mentioned that 2 of my cousins have already agreed to sell their shares to Eleanor at below market rates, voluntarily. That's what I thought at first, but then I remembered something from those files we found. Both of my cousins were mentioned as potential problems. Damien stops pacing and looks at me directly. Alexandra, I think she's been threatening people. Maybe worse. We need more proof before we can. There's something else. Damien interrupts. The attorney lets slip that Eleanor's been asking questions about you, specifically about your background and credentials. My blood turns to ice. What kind of questions? The kind that suggests she's not entirely convinced by your cover story. He mentioned she's hired a private investigator to look into your employment history. I close my eyes and mentally run through every aspect of my false identity. It's good work, professional grade, but if Eleanor has serious resources and enough suspicion, she might be able to uncover inconsistencies. How much time do we have, I ask. I don't know. Could be days. Could be hours. Damien finally sits down, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. Alexandra, I think we need to accelerate our timeline. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we stop gathering evidence and start using it. Damien's eyes are hard with determination. We have enough to destroy Eleanor. Maybe it's time to do exactly that. Damien, if we move too quickly without proper preparation. She killed my parents. His voice is quiet, but there's steel underneath. She's killed at least 4 other people that we know of, and now she's closing in on us. How many more people die while we're being careful? I understand his urgency. I really do. But rushing into a confrontation with Eleanor Hawthorne without a solid plan is likely to get us both killed. Give me 24 hours, I say. Let me reach out to some contacts, people who can help us if this goes sideways. We need backup, Damien. Official backup. What kind of contacts? I hesitate. This is where things get complicated, where my real identity starts bleeding through my cover story, the kind that work for 3-letter government agencies and take a very dim view of serial killers operating on American soil. Damien stares at me for a long moment. Just how deep does your background go, Alexandra Bennett? Deeper than you probably want to know. I stand and move to the window, watching the groundskeepers tend to Eleanor's perfect gardens. But right now, that might be exactly what we need. All right, 24 hours. Damien joins me at the window. But Alexandra, if Eleanor makes a move before then we improvise. I turn to face him. Together, he reaches up and touches my face, his thumb tracing the line of my cheekbone in a gesture that's becoming familiar. When this is over, when Eleanor has been stopped and my parents have justice, what happens to us? It's the question I've been avoiding, the one that makes my chest tight with possibilities. I'm not sure I'm ready to explore. I don't know, I admit. My life is complicated. I don't usually stay in one place very long. Maybe it's time for a change. Before I can respond, The library door opens and Eleanor glides in, her smile sharp as a blade. "There you are," she says. But her eyes are calculating as they take in our proximity to each other. "I've been looking everywhere for you two." Damien doesn't step away from me. Instead, he slides his arm around my waist in a gesture that looks casual but feels possessive. "Alexandra was just showing me some of the rare books in grandfather's collection. How romantic." Eleanor's tone suggests she finds it anything but. "Damien, darling." I hate to interrupt, but there's been a development with the estate planning. We need to discuss some urgent matters. "What kind of development?" "The kind that requires immediate attention. I'm afraid it can't wait." Eleanor's smile never wavers, but something in her eyes makes every instinct I have scream danger. "Miss Bennet, I'm sure you'll understand if I borrow Damien for the rest of the afternoon." There's something in the way she says it. Some subtle threat I can't quite identify. But Damien must feel it too, because his arm tightens around me. "Actually, Alexandra and I had plans for this evening," Damien says smoothly. "Perhaps we could discuss business matters tomorrow morning." "I'm afraid this really can't wait." Eleanor's mask slips just slightly, revealing something cold and dangerous underneath. "Some things have come to light that require immediate clarification about family loyalty, about trust, about the consequences of betraying the people who've loved and protected you." The words hang in the air like a threat, and I realize with growing dread that Eleanor knows. Maybe not everything, but enough. Enough to be dangerous. "Of course," Damien says, his voice steady despite the tension I can feel in his body. "Alexandra, why don't you continue reviewing the security systems? I'll catch up with you later." I want to protest, want to insist that we stick together, but making a scene now will only confirm Eleanor's suspicions. Instead, I reach up and kiss Damien softly, putting all the worry and affection I can't voice into the gesture. "Be careful," I whisper against his lips. "Always am," he whispers back, but we both know it's a lie. I watch them leave together, Eleanor's hand possessively on Damien's arm, and every instinct I have is screaming that I should follow them. But I force myself to wait, to count to 60, before slipping out of the library and making my way toward the security office. 24 hours suddenly feels like far too long to wait. 2 hours later, I am in the estate's security monitoring room, ostensibly reviewing camera footage but actually trying to track Damien and Eleanor's movements through the house. They've been in Eleanor's private office for over an hour, and the security cameras don't cover that room. My phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. "Roof garden, midnight. Come alone. Trust no one else. D." I stare at the message. Every detail is wrong. Damien doesn't text like that, too formal, too cautious, and he knows I prefer secure communication channels for anything sensitive. But if Eleanor has discovered our investigation, if she's threatening Damien, I check my watch. 11:47 p.m. 13 minutes to decide whether to walk into what's obviously a trap or assume Damien can handle himself and risk being wrong. My secure phone, the one connected to my real identity, chirps with an encrypted message. The text makes my blood freeze. A. Bennett identity compromised. Extraction recommended immediately. E. Hawthorne has extensive private security resources and history of eliminating threats. Control my handler knows about Eleanor, which means my cover is blown. Damien is in immediate danger, and I have about 5 minutes to decide whether to run or fight. I check my backup weapon, a compact pistol hidden in a specialized holster at the small of my back, and grab the emergency kit I keep hidden in my room. Cash. Fake identification. Untraceable phone. And enough equipment to disappear completely if necessary. But as I head toward the roof garden, I know I'm not running. Whatever's waiting for me up there, whatever Eleanor has planned, I'm not leaving Damien to face it alone. The roof garden is Eleanor Hawthorne's crown jewel, a stunning terrace filled with exotic plants and illuminated by carefully placed lighting that creates pools of golden warmth in the darkness. Under normal circumstances, it would be breathtakingly beautiful. Tonight, it feels like a stage set for execution. Damien is standing near the garden's edge, silhouetted against the Manhattan skyline. But something's wrong with his posture, too rigid, too still. As I get closer, I see why. Eleanor emerges from behind a cluster of tall plants, and she's not alone. Two men in dark suits flank her, their hands positioned in ways that suggest concealed weapons. "Miss Bennet," Eleanor says, her voice carrying easily across the garden, "or should I call you Agent Bennet? I'm afraid your cover wasn't quite as thorough as you believed." Damien turns toward me, and I can see the apology in his eyes. "Alexandra, I'm sorry." "She knew she's known all along." "Not all along," Eleanor corrects. "But once I started digging into your background, the inconsistencies became rather obvious. Did you really think a small-town cybersecurity consultant would have the kind of training necessary to bypass my security systems?" I keep my hands visible and my expression neutral, but my mind is racing through possible escape routes. The roof garden has 3 exits. The main staircase where I came up, a service entrance on the far side, and well, a 4-story drop to the gardens below. "What do you want, Eleanor?" "What I've always wanted: to protect my family's interests." Eleanor moves closer, and I can see the family resemblance to Damien in her sharp features. But where Damien's intensity comes from passion and conviction, Eleanor's comes from something much colder. "You and Damien have been very busy, haven't you? Exploring areas of the house that were meant to remain private." "We don't know what you're talking about." Eleanor laughs, a sound like breaking glass. "Please, I know about my father-in-law's little sanctuary in the basement. I know you've accessed his files. I know you think you understand what happened to Damien's parents." "We understand enough," Damien says, his voice hard with barely controlled anger. "We know you killed them. We know you've been eliminating anyone who threatened your operation. I've been protecting this family for 20 years. Eleanor snaps, her composure finally cracking. "Your parents were going to destroy everything we'd built. They were naive idealists who couldn't understand that sometimes dirty hands are necessary to keep clean consciences fed and housed. They were good people. They were liabilities." Eleanor's voice turns cold again. "Just like you've become, Damien. And just like your government friend here." One of Eleanor's men steps forward, and I catch the glint of metal at his hip. Time's running out. "Here is what's going to happen," Eleanor continues. "You're both going to have a tragic accident. A lover's quarrel that turned violent, perhaps. Agent Bennet kills Damien in a fit of jealous rage, then takes her own life in remorse. Very dramatic. The tabloids will love it. Except we're not going to cooperate with your little script," I say, shifting my weight slightly to put myself in a better position to reach my weapon. "Oh, I think you will." Eleanor signals to her men, and they move to flank us. "Because if you don't, it'll simply have to expand the tragedy. Damien's charming cousin Emma, for instance, or that lovely family that lives in the cottage on the east grounds. Sometimes collateral damage is necessary to sell a story. The threat to innocent people changes everything. Eleanor is not just a killer. She's a monster willing to murder anyone who gets in her way." "All right," I say, raising my hands in apparent surrender. "You win. But I want to know one thing first." "What?" "How long have you known I wasn't really a cybersecurity consultant?" Eleanor smiles, pleased with her own cleverness. "Since the moment you arrived. You see, I never hired a cybersecurity consultant. The real Alexandra Bennet is currently enjoying a lovely vacation in the Bahamas, completely unaware that someone has stolen her identity." My heart sinks. If Eleanor knew from the beginning, then everything we've done, every precaution we've taken, has been carefully orchestrated by her. Eleanor finishes reading my expression. I needed to know how much my father-in-law had discovered before he died. What better way than to let you lead me straight to his evidence? Damien's face has gone pale with realization. The files we found, the computer all monitored, every file you accessed, every document you copied. I know about all of it. Eleanor's smile is triumphant. In fact, I should thank you. You've helped me identify the last few loose ends that need to be tied up. Despair crashes over me like a wave. We've been played from the beginning, dancing to Eleanor's tune while thinking we were investigating her. But then I catch Damien's eye, and I see something there that gives me hope. Hes not defeated, Hes angry, and Hes planning something. There's just one problem with your plan, Aunt Eleanor, Damien says conversationally. What's that? You're assuming we came up here alone. Eleanor's confidence falters slightly. What do you mean? Damien pulls out his phone and shows her the screen. I've been live streaming this entire conversation to a very interested federal agent. Say hello to Special Agent Sarah Chen of the FBI. Eleanor's face goes white. That's impossible. I've been monitoring all electronic communications from the estate. You've been monitoring the obvious ones, I say, finally understanding Damien's plan. But you didn't account for the emergency protocols built into federal equipment. It's a bluff. A brilliant, desperate bluff, but it works. Eleanor's carefully constructed composure crumbles as she realizes everything she's just confessed has potentially been recorded and transmitted to law enforcement. Kill them, she snaps at her men. Kill them both. Now. What happens next unfolds in slow motion. Damien lunges toward Eleanor while I drop and roll, coming up with my weapon drawn. Eleanor's men reach for their guns, but they're a split second too slow. The first shot echoes across the roof garden, shattering the peaceful night air. Then chaos erupts as sirens begin wailing in the distance, real sirens, not part of any bluff. Because sometimes, when you're very lucky and very desperate, the bluff you make turns out to be true. Hawthorne Manor rooftop garden, midnight. The first gunshot shatters more than just the peaceful night air. It destroys any pretense that this confrontation will end without bloodshed. Eleanor's lead security man, a granite-faced professional whose name I'll never know, fires wide as Damien tackles him from the side. The bullet sparks off the metal railing behind me, sending fragments of decorative ironwork scattering across the garden stone pathways. I roll behind a large planter filled with exotic orchids, my weapon drawn, and my mind automatically shifting into the tactical mode that's kept me alive through 3 years of undercover operations. Eleanor's second man is moving to flank me, his gun tracking my movement with professional precision. These aren't amateur thugs. They're trained killers, probably former military or private security contractors. Federal agents, drop your weapons. The shout comes from the stairwell entrance, accompanied by the beam of tactical flashlights cutting through the darkness. Either Damien's bluff was the most incredible stroke of luck in history, or he's been playing a deeper game than even I realized. Eleanor's reaction tells me everything I need to know about her guilt. Instead of confusion or indignation, her face twists with pure rage. This is impossible, she snarls, backing toward the garden's far edge. I control everything. Every communication except the ones you didn't know about. Damien calls out from where he's wrestling with the first gunman for control of the weapon. His expensive shirt is torn, and there's blood on his knuckles, but his voice carries a note of satisfaction that makes my heart skip. The tactical team flooding onto the rooftop garden wears the distinctive gear of the FBI's hostage rescue team. Their movements are coordinated and professional, but what catches my attention is the woman leading them, a petite Asian American agent who looks remarkably like someone I've seen in old photographs. Sarah Chen, FBI, she announces, her weapon trained on Eleanor. Eleanor Hawthorne, you're under arrest for conspiracy, murder, and racketeering under the RICO Act. Eleanor's face goes ashen. Chen, you're related to Marcus Chen. My brother, Agent Chen confirms, her voice cold as winter steel. The man you had killed 22 years ago for discovering your embezzlement scheme. We've been building a case against you for 5 years, Mrs. Hawthorne, thanks to Mr. Hawthorne's cooperation. We finally have everything we need. Damien's cooperation. The pieces suddenly click into place in my mind like tumblers in a lock. Damien hasn't been the confused nephew trying to uncover family secrets. Has been working with federal law enforcement all along. The wrestling match between Damien and Eleanor's gunman ends abruptly when 2 FBI agents intervene, efficiently disarming and restraining both of Eleanor's men. Damien stands up slowly, adjusting his torn shirt and wiping blood from a split lip, but his eyes are already seeking mine across the garden. "Alexandra," he says, his voice carrying a note of urgency that makes my chest tighten. "I can explain everything. Can you?" I keep my weapon lowered but ready, my mind racing through everything I thought I knew about Damien Hawthorne, because right now I'm wondering if anything you've told me over the past week has been true. Agent Chen glances between us with professional interest. "Agent Bennett, I presume. Your handler mentioned you were operating under deep cover here, my handler, which means my real identity has been blown completely, not just to Eleanor, but to an entirely different federal operation. I feel like a chess piece that suddenly discovered the game is three-dimensional and I've been playing on the wrong board." "Agent Chen," I acknowledge, holstering my weapon as the tactical situation becomes clear. "Eleanor's men are in custody. Eleanor herself is being read her rights by 2 agents, and the immediate threat has passed. I wasn't aware this was a joint operation. It wasn't supposed to be," Damien says, stepping closer. "Despite the chaos around us, Alexandra, I need you to understand. When I contacted the FBI 5 years ago, it was supposed to be a simple investigation into corporate fraud. I had no idea it would escalate to this level. 5 years ago?" I stare at him, pieces of a much larger puzzle falling into place. "Damien, exactly how long have you been planning this?" "Since the day I turned 18 and gained access to my trust fund records," he admits. "I started noticing discrepancies, money that should have been there that wasn't, investments that made no sense. When I tried to ask questions, Eleanor convinced the family I was being irresponsible and rebellious, so I left for Europe and started investigating from the outside." Agent Chen finishes supervising Eleanor's arrest and approaches us, her expression professional but not unfriendly. "Mr. Hawthorne has been instrumental in this investigation. His cooperation allowed us to build a RICO case that extends far beyond his family's company." "How far beyond?" I ask, though I'm beginning to suspect I don't want to know the answer. "Hawthorne Holdings was the center of a money laundering operation that processed over $200 million in illegal funds over the past 15 years, Agent Chen explains. "Drug money, arms dealing profits, human trafficking proceeds. Eleanor Hawthorne has been washing dirty money for some very dangerous people." The revelation hits me like a physical blow. I thought we were dealing with corporate espionage and family murder. Instead, we've stumbled into the middle of an international criminal enterprise. "The people my parents discovered," Damien says quietly, "they weren't just stealing company secrets. They were using Hawthorne Holdings to launder money for organized crime syndicates. And when your parents threatened to expose the operation, Eleanor had them eliminated," Agent Chen confirms, "along with 6 other people over the years who got too close to the truth." Eleanor, now handcuffed and flanked by federal agents, turns toward us with a smile that's pure venom. "You have no idea what you've done," she says, her cultured voice carrying a note of genuine menace. "The people I work for don't tolerate interference. Destroying me won't stop the operation. It will just make them angry." "Let us worry about that," Agent Chen replies calmly. Right now, you need to worry about spending the rest of your life in federal prison. As the FBI team begins processing the scene and preparing to transport Eleanor, Damien moves closer to me. In the harsh glare of the tactical lighting, I can see the exhaustion in his face, the weight of years of deception and planning finally lifting from his shoulders. "Alexandra," he says softly, "I know I should have told you the truth from the beginning, but I couldn't risk compromising the investigation, and I couldn't risk putting you in danger." "Putting me in danger?" I laugh, but there's no humor in it. "Damien, I'm a federal agent. Danger is literally my job description. I didn't know that when we first met. All I knew was that someone had infiltrated the estate using a false identity, and I needed to figure out if you were a threat or an opportunity." The honesty in his voice cuts through my anger and confusion. "And which did you decide I was?" "Both," he admits. "You were a threat to my carefully laid plans, and an opportunity for something I never expected to find." Damien reaches out and gently touches my face, his thumb tracing the line of my cheekbone in a gesture that's become achingly familiar. "Someone worth changing my plans for." Before I can respond, Agent Chen clears her throat. "I hate to interrupt, but we need to debrief both of you. There are still several loose ends in this investigation, and we'll need your full cooperation to tie them up." The next 3 hours pass in a blur of statements, evidence cataloging, and strategic planning. We're moved to a secure FBI facility in downtown Manhattan, where I learn the full scope of the Hawthorne investigation and my unintentional role in it. Damien's cooperation with the FBI began 5 years ago when he first contacted them about financial irregularities in the family trust. What started as a simple fraud investigation evolved into something much larger when federal investigators realized the scope of Eleanor's criminal enterprise. "She's been smart about it," Agent Chen explains as we review files in a sterile conference room. "Using legitimate business transactions to disguise illegal fund transfers, keeping the family's public reputation spotless while running a criminal operation behind the scenes. Without Damien's inside access, we never would have been able to penetrate her security." "What about my handler?" I ask. "How did my operation intersect with yours?" "Your original target was Dr. Elizabeth Morrison, the Chief Technology Officer at Hawthorne Holdings," Agent Chen explains. "She's been developing a new encryption algorithm that several foreign governments are very interested in acquiring. Your mission was to determine if she was planning to sell it. And was she? No. But she was unknowingly developing it for Eleanor's criminal associates. The encryption technology was going to be used to secure communications for international money laundering operations." I lean back in my chair, trying to process the full implications. "So my mission was always connected to your investigation. We just didn't know it." "Exactly. Which is why Damien's bluff about live streaming worked so well. We were already monitoring the situation and had a response team standing by." Damien, who's been quietly reviewing his own files, looks up at this. "How long were you watching before you intervened?" "Long enough to know that Eleanor was planning to kill both of you," Agent Chen says grimly. "We had surveillance on the estate, but we needed her to reveal the full scope of her operation before we could move. When she started making direct threats, we had to act, even if it meant blowing the investigation. We had enough evidence to prosecute her regardless, but saving your lives was more important than getting a perfect case." The conversation continues for another hour, covering details about the prosecution, witness protection considerations, and the ongoing investigation into Eleanor's criminal associates. By the time we're finished, dawn is breaking over Manhattan, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. As we leave the federal building, Damien and I find ourselves alone for the first time since the confrontation on the rooftop. The early morning streets are quiet, populated only by joggers and the occasional taxi carrying late-night partygoers home. "So," I say as we walk toward the car the FBI provided, 5 years of planning, federal cooperation, and an international criminal conspiracy. Anything else you'd like to tell me about your family? Damien winces. I know how it sounds. But Alexandra, everything between us that was real. The investigation brought us together, but what happened between us had nothing to do with any operation. Didn't it? I stopped walking and turned to face him. You knew I wasn't really a cybersecurity consultant. You were working with the FBI. How do I know the attraction, the partnership, even that first kiss? How do I know any of it wasn't just part of your cover story? Because, Damien says, stepping closer until we're standing under a streetlight that casts golden shadows across his face, my cover story didn't include falling in love with you. The words hang in the air between us like a challenge. Love. He said love, not attraction or affection or any of the safer words we've been dancing around for days. Damien, I start, but he reaches out and takes my hands. I know it's complicated. I know we've both been living lies for so long that it's hard to tell what's real anymore, but this is real, Alexandra. What I feel for you is the most honest thing in my life. I look into his eyes, searching for any sign of deception, any hint that this is just another layer of the con has been running for 5 years. But all I see is exhaustion, relief, and something that looks remarkably like hope. The FBI will want to relocate me, I say quietly. New identity, new assignment, probably on the other side of the country. That's how these things work when your cover gets blown this completely. Then don't let them relocate you. It's not that simple. This is my job, Damien. It's what I do. What if you could do something else? What if you didn't have to run anymore? Before I can ask what he means, my secure phone buzzes with an encrypted message. I check it quickly, then look up at Damien with surprise. What is it? He asks. My handler. The Hawthorne investigation has been so successful that they're offering me a promotion to a supervisory position based in New York. I stare at the phone, hardly believing what I'm reading. They want me to head up a new task force focusing on white-collar crime with international connections. Damien's face breaks into the first genuine smile I've seen from him in hours. So you could stay? I could stay, I agree, if I wanted to. Do you want to? It's a simple question with a complicated answer. For 3 years I've been living under assumed identities, never staying anywhere long enough to form real connections, never allowing myself to get attached to places or people. The idea of staying, of building something real with someone who knows exactly who I am and what I do, is both terrifying and exhilarating. Yes, I say, surprising myself with how certain I sound. I want to stay. Damien doesn't say anything else. Instead, he pulls me into his arms and kisses me right there under the streetlight on a quiet Manhattan morning, with the chaos of the night behind us and an uncertain but promising future ahead. When we finally break apart, he rests his forehead against mine. So, what happens now? Now we figure out how to have a relationship when we both know each other's real names, I say. And we help the FBI make sure Eleanor's criminal associates don't come looking for revenge. Sounds dangerous. Probably. Are you sure you're ready for that kind of life? Damien considers this for a moment, then grins with the kind of reckless confidence that first attracted me to him. Alexandra, I've spent 5 years infiltrating my own family's criminal organization and pretending to be an irresponsible playboy while secretly working with federal law enforcement. I think I can handle dating an FBI agent. Dating? I raise an eyebrow. Is that what we're calling this? Would you prefer courting, romantic partnership, exclusive emotional and physical alliance? I laugh, feeling lighter than I have in years. Dating works. But Damien, yeah? No more secrets. From here on out, complete honesty between us about everything. Deal, he says, sealing it with another kiss. But fair warning, my real life is probably going to be a lot more boring than the past week has been. Somehow I doubt that, I reply. thinking about the task force I'll be heading, the international criminals we'll be pursuing, and the man beside me who's proven he can handle anything life throws at him. As we walk toward the car hand in hand in the early morning light, I realize that for the first time in my adult life, I'm not running toward the next assignment or away from the last one. I'm walking into a future that's uncertain and dangerous and absolutely perfect. The Hawthorne investigation is over, but our story is just beginning. 2 weeks later, I'm sitting in my new office at Federal Plaza, reviewing case files for the International Financial Crimes Task Force, when Damien appears in my doorway with 2 cups of coffee and a smile that still makes my heart skip. "Agent Bennett," he says formally, then grins. I like the sound of that. "Supervisory Special Agent Bennett," I correct, accepting the coffee gratefully. "And you're not supposed to be in this building without an escort." "Mr. Hawthorne." "About that," Damien says, settling into the chair across from my desk. "I've been thinking about our conversation the other night about finding legitimate ways to use my skills." "What kind of thinking?" "The kind that involves applying for a position as a financial crimes consultant with the FBI. He pulls a folder from his jacket and sets it on my desk. "Turns out having intimate knowledge of how international money laundering operations work is a pretty valuable skill set." I flip through the application, impressed despite myself. "Damien, this is a real career change. Are you sure you want to give up the family business?" "What family business?" "Eleanor's in federal prison. The company's been seized as evidence, and I'm the sole heir to an estate that's probably going to be auctioned off to pay restitution to her victims." Damien shrugs. "Besides, I think I found a better use for my talents." "Working with me?" "Working with you. Fighting the kind of criminals who destroyed my family, making sure other people don't have to go through what I did." He leans forward. "Alexandra, I've spent 5 years of my life getting justice for my parents. Now I want to spend the rest of it getting justice for everyone else." I study his face, looking for any sign that this is another impulse decision, another reckless plan that sounds good in the moment. But all I see is determination, purpose, and the kind of quiet confidence that comes from having survived the worst and decided to use it for something good. "The FBI doesn't usually hire consultants with your background," I say carefully. "They do when those consultants have successfully infiltrated and helped dismantle a $200 million criminal enterprise," Damien replies. "Agent Chen already put in a good word for me." "Did she now?" "She also mentioned that the task force you're heading could use someone with expertise in European financial systems and international business practices." I set down the application and look at him seriously. "Damien, working together professionally is different from what we've been doing. There are rules, protocols, oversight. It won't be the exciting undercover adventure we just finished." "Good," Damien says. "I've had enough excitement to last a lifetime. What I want now is the chance to build something real, with someone I trust completely, even if that someone carries a gun and occasionally has to arrest international criminals. Especially then," I say, reaching across the desk to take his hand. "Besides, someone has to keep you from getting into too much trouble." I laugh, thinking about the case files on my desk, the international investigations we'll be pursuing, and the man sitting across from me who's proven he can handle anything the world throws at us. "All right, Mr. Hawthorne," I say, picking up his application. "Let's see what the FBI thinks about hiring the man who helped bring down the Hawthorne money laundering operation. And if they say yes, then we get to save the world together professionally and personally." Damien grins, the same reckless, confident smile that first caught my attention in his grandfather's study. I can't think of anything I'd rather do. As he leaves my office to meet with the FBI recruitment team, I turn back to my case files with a sense of anticipation I haven't felt in years. The Hawthorne investigation brought us together, but everything that happens from here is our choice, and for the first time in my life, I'm choosing to stay. 6 months later, FBI, Federal Plaza in New York, The morning sun streams through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my corner office, illuminating the wall of case files that represent 6 months of the most successful financial crimes investigations in FBI history. The International Financial Crimes Task Force has exceeded every expectation, dismantling 3 major money laundering operations, recovering over $500 million in stolen assets, and establishing cooperation agreements with law enforcement agencies in 12 countries. But none of that compares to the satisfaction of seeing Damian Hawthorne walk into my office every morning with coffee and the kind of smile that still makes my heart skip after all this time. "Good morning, Supervisory Special Agent Bennett," he says, setting a perfect cappuccino on my desk and leaning down to kiss me softly. It's become our ritual. Professional distance during work hours, but these small moments of connection that remind us both how far we've come. "Good morning, Senior Financial Consultant Hawthorne," I reply, accepting both the coffee and the kiss gratefully. "Ready for the big day?" Today marks the culmination of our biggest case yet, the prosecution of Eleanor Hawthorne and her entire criminal network. After 6 months of painstaking investigation, testimony from dozens of witnesses, and cooperation from international law enforcement agencies, the verdicts are finally coming in. Damian settles into the chair across from my desk, his expression more serious than usual. Over the past 6 months, he's transformed from the reckless nephew playing family investigator into one of the FBI's most valuable financial crimes consultants. His knowledge of international banking systems, combined with his first-hand experience infiltrating criminal organizations, has made him indispensable to our operations. "Nervous?" I ask, studying his face. "A little," he admits. "Not about the verdict, we have enough evidence to convict Eleanor 10 times over, but about what comes after." I understand his concern. Eleanor's trial has dominated our lives for months, requiring countless hours of testimony, evidence preparation, and strategic planning. When it's over, we'll finally be free to focus on building the future we've been planning. "Agent Chen called this morning," I tell him. "The jury reached a verdict in the RICO case. Eleanor Hawthorne guilty on all counts. Her associates guilty on all counts. Sentencing is scheduled for next month, but Chen estimates Eleanor will get life without parole." Damian is quiet for a long moment, processing the news that his parents' killer will finally face justice. "How do you feel about it?" he asks eventually. "Satisfied? Relieved? Ready to move on?" I lean back in my chair. "How do you feel about it?" "Like I can finally breathe," Damian says. "For 15 years I've been carrying the weight of not knowing what really happened to my parents. For 5 years I've been focused entirely on getting justice for them. Now that it's done, now we get to figure out what comes next." Damian reaches into his jacket pocket and pulls out an envelope bearing the FBI seal. "Actually, I think I know what comes next, at least for me." I recognize the envelope immediately. It's the formal response to Damian's application for permanent federal employment. We've been waiting for this decision for months, navigating the complex background checks and security clearances required for someone with his unique history. "Well?" I ask, though his expression already tells me the answer. "Special Agent Damian Hawthorne reporting for duty," he says, grinning with a kind of joy that lights up his entire face. "Pending completion of training at Quantico, of course." The news hits me like a wave of pure happiness. "Damian, that's incredible. When do you start?" "Next month. 16 weeks of training, then assignment to the International Financial Crimes Task Force under the supervision of a certain supervisory special agent who I hear is both brilliant and devastatingly attractive. I think I might know her," I say, laughing. "Fair warning, though she has a reputation for being a tough supervisor." "I'm counting on it," Damian replies, reaching across the desk to take my hand. "Alexandra, I know we've talked about building a future together, but I want to make sure you understand what you're signing up for. Working together, living together, potentially spending the rest of our lives together. It's a lot. Are you trying to talk me out of it? I'm trying to make sure you're sure. Because once we do this, once we make it official, I'm not letting you go. Ever. The intensity in his voice makes my chest tight with emotion. 6 months ago I was a federal agent who never stayed in one place long enough to form real connections. The idea of forever with anyone would have terrified me. But Damien Hawthorne has changed everything I thought I knew about love, partnership, and what it means to build a life with someone. Damien, I say, standing up and moving around the desk to where he's sitting. I've spent my entire adult life running from commitment, avoiding emotional attachments, telling myself that my job was more important than personal relationships. But you've shown me that the job is better when you have someone to share it with. The danger is manageable when you have someone watching your back, and life is infinitely more meaningful when you have someone to build it with. Damien stands too, taking both of my hands in his. Is that a yes? That's a yes to everything. To working together, to building a life together, to whatever comes next. I look into his eyes, seeing the same mixture of love and determination that's been there since that first night in his grandfather's study. But I have one condition. Name it. No more secrets, no more hidden agendas, no more elaborate plans that I don't know about. I pause. Unless they're surprise plans that involve jewelry and getting down on one knee. Damien's eyes widen slightly. Are you saying what I think you're saying? I'm saying that if someone were hypothetically planning to propose to a certain federal agent, she would hypothetically be very receptive to the idea. Hypothetically? Very hypothetically. Damien reaches into his other jacket pocket and pulls out a small velvet box that makes my heart stop completely. Then it's a good thing I've been carrying this around for the past month, waiting for the right moment. Damien, I breathe, staring at the box like it contains the answer to every question I never knew I was asking. Alexandra Bennett, he says, dropping to one knee right there in my federal office, surrounded by case files and evidence boxes and all the trappings of our complicated, dangerous, absolutely perfect life. Will you marry me? He opens the box to reveal the most beautiful ring I've ever seen, a classic solitaire diamond, surrounded by smaller stones that catch the morning light and throw rainbows across the office walls. It's elegant and timeless, and completely perfect. Yes, I say, the word coming out is barely a whisper. Yes. Absolutely. Definitely yes. Damien slides the ring onto my finger with hands that are surprisingly steady, considering mine are shaking. When he stands up and kisses me, I taste coffee and happiness, and the promise of a future that's better than anything I ever imagined. Agent Bennett. My assistant's voice comes through the intercom, interrupting our moment. Sorry to bother you, but Agent Chen is here with the final case reports. Damien and I spring apart like guilty teenagers, both of us laughing at the absurdity of getting engaged in a federal office building. Send her in, I call back, trying to compose myself while admiring the way my new engagement ring catches the light. Agent Sarah Chen enters the office, carrying a thick folder and wearing the expression of someone who's just witnessed something she probably shouldn't have seen. Congratulations, she says dryly. I take it the FBI employment decision was favorable among other things, Damien says, not even trying to hide his grin. Agent Chen sets the folder on my desk and looks between us with professional amusement. Well, before you two start planning the wedding, we have some business to finish. The Hawthorne case generated intelligence about 3 other major financial crimes operations. The director wants to know if the task force is interested in taking them on. I flip through the folder, scanning reports about cryptocurrency laundering schemes, international art theft rings, and offshore banking fraud that spans multiple continents. Each case represents months of investigation, significant danger, and the kind of complex financial crimes that have become our specialty. What do you think? I ask Damien. Ready for our next adventure? With you? Always, he replies. Besides, someone has to keep you from taking unnecessary risks. I don't take unnecessary risks. Both Damien and Agent Chen look at me with identical expressions of skepticism. Okay. Fine. I take calculated risks that sometimes turn out to be more dangerous than anticipated, I concede. That's what you're for. Agent Chen shakes her head with amusement. You'll tell the director you're interested, but maybe wait until after the honeymoon to start the next investigation. After she leaves, Damien and I spend the rest of the morning reviewing case files and planning task force operations. Our professional partnership seamlessly integrates with our personal relationship in a way that feels natural and right. This is what I never knew I wanted. Someone who understands both my job and my heart, who can match my dedication to justice with his own, who makes every case better and every day brighter. At lunch, we walk to the small Italian restaurant 3 blocks from Federal Plaza that's become our favorite spot for important conversations. The owner, an elderly gentleman named Jeppe who treats every customer like family, immediately notices my engagement ring and insists on providing champagne and the best table in the house. So, Damien says as we settle into our booth, we should probably talk about practical things like where we're going to live, when we're getting married, whether you want a big wedding or something small. Where do you want to live? I ask, realizing we've been so focused on our professional partnership that we haven't discussed basic logistics. Honestly, I'd be happy anywhere, as long as it's with you. But I've been thinking about that brownstone in Brooklyn Heights we looked at last month, the one with the home office space and the view of the harbor. I remember the apartment perfectly. A beautiful renovated brownstone with original brick walls, modern appliances, and enough space for both of us to work from home when needed. It felt like the kind of place where we could actually build a real life together. I love that place, I admit. But Damien, it's expensive. Even with both our FBI salaries. About that, Damien says, looking slightly uncomfortable. There's something I haven't told you. I raise an eyebrow. There better not be any more secret criminal empires. He laughs. No, nothing like that. When the government seized Eleanor's assets, they discovered that most of the family's legitimate wealth was actually mine, held in trust since my parents died. The money Eleanor was laundering belonged to her criminal associates. But the Hawthorne family fortune? That belongs to me. I stare at him across the table. How much money are we talking about? Enough that we could buy the brownstone outright and still have enough left over to fund our retirement, travel the world, and probably endow a scholarship program for aspiring federal agents. Damien Hawthorne, are you telling me you're secretly wealthy? I'm telling you I'm secretly wealthy and completely devoted to using that wealth to build a life with the woman I love? The waiter arrives with our champagne, giving me a moment to process this information. Is there anything else you haven't told me? I ask. Secret talents? Hidden relatives? Superhero identities? Damien considers this seriously. I make excellent pancakes. I can juggle. And I once spent 3 months learning to tango because I thought it might be useful for undercover work. Can you really tango? Would you like me to demonstrate in the middle of a restaurant? He grins. Agent Bennett, I've proposed to you in a federal office building. I think public displays of affection are officially part of our relationship dynamic. Before I can protest, Damien stands and extends his hand to me with a formal bow that's both ridiculous and charming. The restaurant is nearly empty, just us, an elderly couple in the corner, and Jeppe, who's watching from behind the counter with obvious delight. Damien, we can, he says firmly. We can do whatever we want, Alexandra. That's the point of building a life together. We get to decide what that life looks like. So I take his hand and let him lead me into an impromptu tango right there between the tables, moving to music only we can hear. He's actually quite good, confident, and skilled in a way that makes me wonder what other hidden talents has acquired during his years in Europe. This is insane. I murmur as he spins me gracefully around a table. This is perfect, he corrects, pulling me back into his arms. This is us, Alexandra, professional, dedicated, slightly reckless, and completely committed to each other. When the dance ends, Jeppy applauds enthusiastically and the elderly couple joins in. I'm laughing and breathless and completely, utterly happy in a way I never thought possible. So, Damien says as we sit back down, about the wedding, big or small? Small, I say without hesitation, just family and close friends. Agent Chen, obviously. My parents, if they can get security clearance for the day. Your remaining family members, who aren't in federal prison. That's basically just my cousin Emma and my uncle Robert, neither of whom I've spoken to in 5 years. Perfect. Small and intimate it is. I reach across the table to take his hand. Damien, there's something I want to ask you. Anything. When we first met in your grandfather's study, what were you thinking? Really thinking? Not the official version you gave Agent Chen. Damien is quiet for a moment, considering the question. Seriously? I was thinking that you were either going to ruin everything Id worked for, or you were going to make it all worthwhile. He smiles softly. Turns out you did both. How did I ruin it? You made me care about something other than the investigation. For 5 years, getting justice for my parents was the only thing that mattered. But the moment I met you, I started caring about other things, about your safety, about your happiness, about building something with you that had nothing to do with Eleanor or the FBI or any of it. And how did I make it worthwhile? By showing me that revenge isn't the same as justice, and that the best way to honor my parents isn't to spend my life focused on their death, but to spend it building the kind of life they would have wanted for me. Damien lifts my hand to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to my engagement ring. A life with someone who understands me completely and loves me anyway. We spend the rest of lunch planning our wedding, our future home, and our next vacation, a trip to Italy that Damien insists on calling our pre-honeymoon reconnaissance mission since we'll undoubtedly end up investigating financial crimes while we're there. Speaking of which, I say as we walk back to Federal Plaza, Agent Chen mentioned that one of our new cases involves art theft rings operating out of Florence. Purely coincidental, I'm sure. Purely coincidental, Damien agrees solemnly. Though I should mention that I happen to know quite a bit about Italian banking systems and international art markets. Of course you do. I roll my eyes, smiling. Any other relevant expertise I should know about? I speak 4 languages. I have contacts in most major European cities. And I once spent 6 months learning to forge documents for an undercover operation that never materialized. I stop walking and stare at him. Damien Hawthorne, exactly how many skills did you acquire during your years of playing international man of mystery? Enough to keep our future investigations interesting, he says with a grin that promises adventure and mischief in equal measure. As we enter the federal building and head back to our respective offices, I realize that 6 months ago I thought I was infiltrating the Hawthorne estate for a simple corporate espionage mission. Instead, I found a conspiracy, a criminal empire, and the love of my life. The Hawthorne investigation may be over, but our story is just beginning. We have cases to solve, criminals to catch, and a wedding to plan. We have a brownstone to buy, a future to build, and probably several more international adventures ahead of us. And for the first time in my life, I'm not running toward the next assignment or away from the last one. I'm exactly where I want to be, with exactly the person I want to be there with. 3 months later, on a perfect October afternoon in Central Park, Damien Hawthorne and I exchange vows in front of 23 people and Agent Chen, who insists on providing security despite the fact that we're FBI agents perfectly capable of securing our own wedding. My dress is simple and elegant. His suit is perfectly tailored, and when he promises to love me through all our future adventures, professional and personal, I know he means every word. Our first dance is, naturally, a tango. Our honeymoon in Italy results in the arrest of 12 international art thieves and the recovery of over $50 million in stolen artwork. And when we return to New York to our brownstone in Brooklyn Heights and our offices at Federal Plaza, we start planning our next case with the kind of partnership that makes everything better. The work, the danger, and especially the quiet moments in between when it's just us and the life we've built together. The forbidden room where we first met has been sealed as evidence, but we don't need it anymore. We've found what we were really looking for, not family secrets or corporate intelligence, but each other. And that's the only treasure worth keeping. 6 years later, when our twins ask how Mommy and Daddy met, we tell them the truth. We fell in love while chasing bad guys and solving mysteries. It's a family tradition we plan to continue for a very long time. After all, the world is full of criminals who need catching. And there's no one I'd rather catch them with than Damien Hawthorne, my partner, my husband, and my best friend in all our adventures. The end is just the beginning. Epilogue. 10 years later, Hawthorne Bennett Financial Crimes Consulting Firm, Manhattan Agent Mom. Our 8-year-old twins, Sarah and Marcus, named after Agent Chen and Marcus Chen, burst into my office, wearing makeshift FBI badges and the most serious expressions 2 children can muster. Agent Dad says you have a new case for us. I look up from my desk to see Damien leaning in the doorway behind them, arms crossed, grinning that same heart-stopping grin that still works on me after all these years. It's a very important case, he adds solemnly. Someone has been stealing cookies from the kitchen, and we need the Hawthorne Bennett team's best investigators on it. Our consulting firm has become one of the most successful financial crimes investigation companies in the country, working with law enforcement agencies around the world to track down international criminals and recover stolen assets. But our most important clients will always be the 2 little detectives standing in front of me. What's the evidence? Sarah asks, seriously. She's inherited her father's analytical mind and her mother's instinct for detail. Crumb trails leading to the toy room, Marcus reports. Has got his mother's tactical awareness and his father's charm and suspicious chocolate fingerprints on the refrigerator handle. Sounds like we have a case, I say, standing and grabbing my jacket. Agent Hawthorne Bennett, ready for your first official investigation? As our family heads out to solve the mystery of the missing cookies, spoiler alert, it was definitely Damien. I reflect on how far we've come from that night 10 years ago, when I first entered the forbidden room in the Hawthorne estate. We've built something extraordinary together. A marriage, a family, a business, and a partnership that makes every day an adventure. We've caught international criminals, recovered hundreds of millions in stolen assets, and raised 2 children who think being federal agents is the coolest job in the world. And every morning, Damien still brings me perfect coffee and kisses me like we're newlyweds planning our first undercover mission. Some love stories end with happily ever after. Ours ends with ready for whatever comes next.